A new poll has found that if an election was held today, Labour would become the biggest party in Parliament. The result of the Taxpayers Union Curia poll dropped while Prime Minister Christopher Luxon was in his element at field days in the Waikato, among farmers who overwhelmingly support.
Look, he might have been amongst his voters, but he was certainly not in his fucking element. This man who lives in East Auckland, who spent time working as a board member in Canada, this is not his element. Yes, it might be his voters, but come on, let's just be fair. This is not his element. He's probably got a brand new pair of red bands because he only wears them once every 3 years when he goes to field days to get people's vote, probably. Anyway.
That's what I was going to say, is like, if ever, cameramen that listen to the show,
pan down.
Pan down. Absolutely. I want to see those gummies.
Yep. With the price tag still on them, out the back.
Pristine they are.
Yeah. All right.
The coalition. And the government wants the focus to instead be on a new primary sector report showing export revenue is on track to surpass $60 billion for the first time. Political correspondent Zane Small is at field days.
Grey skies, but great vibes.
So just echoing that point, Chewie.
Field days.
Look at the gumboots. So those are some used footwear, you know? Those are some worn-in gumboots.
Grey skies, but great vibes at field days, the Southern Hemisphere's largest agricultural event.
I think it's cool. We got a bunch of free stuff.
Have any ambition to be a farmer or work in agriculture?
Yeah, my brother's hired out like farmers.
Hard out, bro.
I'll work on a farm one day.
Vibe's good. Farmers certainly got a few more dollars in their pocket from increased returns.
And walking around here, you'd be forgiven for thinking that the economic downturn was over because the primary sector is booming right now. A new government report shows that export revenue is set to surpass $60 billion for the first time. So how much credit can the government take for that?
A tremendous credit. I mean, we've created the conditions for growth.
The government points to policies such as Investment Boost that offers businesses a 20% tax deduction on new assets. For farmers, that could be a new tractor.
Every stall I've gone to has talked about that being one of the things that's tipping people into making a purchase decision now that makes their farms more efficient.
I think the government is trying to make sure that some of the barriers that are there in the primary sector are taken down.
What the hell's he doing there?
He's an infometrics economist, which is an artisanal crop.
I thought he might be there testing all the pies. That's just me, though.
So although we've got better results at the moment, the focus, I think, going forward is how do we continue to grow those and make them even stronger.
New Zealand's strong export performance is good news for New Zealand's rural economy. The government can't...
There's a swanee in the background there. At least there's a swanee, you know. Oh, look. That looks like your boy.
There he is.
There he is. He's sniping in the back. He's got his scope up.
He's probably wearing a paint spattered hoodie and 15-year-old red bands covered in shit.
Can't take any credit for that. If you look at the things that are driving that, it's better access to markets. Actually, the free trade agreement signed by Labour.
It's funny because it's what Kieran said. There's a literal symbol of him watching Chippy's back. Like it's the literal embodiment of what Kieran says he's about at the moment.
Including the UK and the EU free trade agreements.
The downside to higher export prices can be higher consumer prices.
New Zealand is an exporter of about 90% of what we produce. So essentially the New Zealand consumer has to be paying export prices.
But it's positive for farmers.
Why?
And field days is clearly National's turf.
Because they can get that money elsewhere, so why would they let Kiwis have it any cheaper? Oh, because a bunch of the tax and stuff that we pay goes back into your business as your write-offs and that kind of stuff. We actually help pay for these things in our tax. Maybe you can give us a better deal. This is a small tangent. I had this conversation online today. I put up the thing about it wasn't actually about the Mowbrays, but I was like, if you've got, just so people have an understanding, if you've got $20 million, we did it last night, $20 billion, you could spend $1 million a day and earn no more money and still have money in 54 years from now. You'd still have money spending $1 million a day. And I completely forgot why I started this story. I was trying to baffle on there about what I was talking about. What was I talking about, Chewie? Sheesh.
I have no idea. But what I would like to point out for this whole story is that they've been talking about how good it's been for farmers. That the
I know. I remember.
And they're making more money.
I got it back.
And then in the same breath, saying, sorry, New Zealand, you have to pay the tip-top export dollars, with no justification on why New Zealanders have to do that.
I got it back because I was going to talk about in this clip I was talking. Everyone was talking about self-made men and you started from the ground up. It's like there's no such thing as a self-made man or woman. There's no such thing as someone who started at the bottom and worked their way out with no influence. The roads you drive on, the hospitals you use, the schools you went to, all of these things were a part of the success that you've got as a billionaire in New Zealand today. All of them. So when we talk about paying your fair share, we're just talking about paying for the things that you have benefited from. You haven't actually just done this all on your own because you're a product of your community and your society. And now all we're saying is help the rest of us. So farmers, for example, that 20% you're getting to write off, that's actually thanks to the rest of us because it's coming out of the tax pool that we all contribute to, So it's like, this is not a you guys on your own succeeding. It's all of us helping you succeed, and we're just looking for a little bit of you to bring that back. That's more speaking to the billionaires and the farmers. But it was speaking to Chewie, why can't it be different prices in New Zealand? Because we've helped them make the product on the money that they've used from the tax pool that we all pitch to sell those international prices. So maybe there should be a New Zealand price. Maybe. Anyway, long-winded. Yeah. Got there.
Well, they say that we export 90%. So why isn't there a carve out for 10% of our export things that have to be sold at New Zealand at a cheaper price? They still get to make the majority of the money. It's just clipping the ticket for the people that live in the country, that they're using the rivers and the land and that sort of thing. Farmers are massively important, but they are they're a minority of the voting base that get an enormous amount of power. And then an even tinier minority of those people are really militantly anti-Labour. So
yeah. I think that interview we did with Te Pāti Māori 2 weeks ago, where they got a chance to say finally, and I was thinking about this when I was looking through my Twitter feed today about the people kind of having a go about this, the stat I put up about $20 billion. It's like, you guys don't understand that Te Pāti Māori's policies are fighting for people who are vulnerable or who have been trodden on by big business, by government, by international ventures. And that's you guys who right now are slamming me for talking about tax. You don't get that. And I think that interview was quite important to a lot of people. I've heard from dozens of people about how they'd never heard it described like that. And several people saying I'd consider voting Te Pāti Māori now based on what they were saying. And this is the same sort of thing. It's like, how do you get across this? And you always say it, Chewie, do you earn over $250,000? No? Well, this is not going to impact you. I think those things are going to be really important moving forward. I asked Grok, actually, I done it the first time I've ever done it. I asked Grok when New Zealand was most, because I thought, I know what Grok's going to say. And I thought I'd use Grok, and I asked Grok, when was New Zealand, richest? And it was 1970 to 1973 when the top tax rate was 66%. So I just put that out there and I said, we all know Grok's a bit woke, but why don't we just start there? If we start there, well, maybe we can regain some of that wealth. And then all these people who obviously aren't the top tier of wealth or aren't the billionaires are all carrying water for them. It's a strange thing about the people who vote against their own self-interest. What, because you think you're going to be a billionaire one day? You're not. And actually the billionaire could help make your life a ton easier and better just by simply paying their fair share in tax. So anyway, should we get to the end of this?
Yep.
Let's go.
A recent Federated Farmers poll showed 54% for the party among farmers and just 3% for Labour.
What do you think Labour's doing wrong to attract this vote?
I think they really screwed up with farmers in the last government.
How? Yeah, how? What did they do that screwed up for the farmers? Like all those subsidies and stuff that they paid through COVID to help you guys stay alive. How did they screw up? That's what we want to know. We're going to say something.
Thing. I think a lot of this attitude towards Labour is almost generational.
Yes.
Like
why do you vote
there's
that
a scar there from the removal of a huge amount of farming subsidies when the country almost went tits up in the 80s and we lost our guaranteed English markets and stuff like that. So I would love to see more examination of why that is.
Yeah.
Because it's It just doesn't stack up. They've been given a big bribe of what they're affected by this uncapped tax cut on new equipment, right? New utes and plant and all of that sort of stuff. It's a massive bribe.
Yeah.
Massive.
Yeah. We should think about fitting out the studio, bro. Claim all that money back. That would work, wouldn't it? Something like that. Yeah.
At a national level, though, Labour is on top, according to the latest Taxpayers Union Courier.
You don't get to say that. They're not on top. That's, that's language is inappropriate.
Again,
They're leading. Luxon is not
margin of error.
And margin of error. Is that another dirty sex move?
It's
got myself a margin of error.
error.
Oh no, you're still talking about the poll. Okay, sorry, my mind was elsewhere.
Poll out today. It shows Labour up 1.6 points to 34.8%, and National is down 1.1 to 33.5%. ACT is down 0.4 to 9.1%. The Greens are down 0.9 to 8.2%. New Zealand First drops 1.3 to 6.1%, while Te Pāti Māori is down 0.6 to 3.3%.
Well, Labour team's been working hard around the country to make sure we're getting out and about amongst the community, so we're encouraged by the feedback that we're getting. It's reflected in an increase in our poll ratings.
A bit of a dampener for National on a day it was celebrating the primary sector, pushing the economy to greener pastures.
Every Waikato person had an erection watching those tractors do that. Again, you got to be careful with your words, Shippy. Working the poll around the country, it's just got to be real careful. Look, I agree with you, Chewie. We're very much about margin of error. But I'll say again what I said at the start of the show. Historically speaking, a new government should be killing it in the first term. They should be 10, 15 points ahead of their opposition. The whole country, and I'm just going to use words that people would use, whole country was pissed with Labour and booted them out viciously at the last election. And for them to be basically neck and neck, trending neck and neck, a year up from election at the end of the first term of a new government is unheard of. It's unheard of. That's the thing that's interesting. It's like, you guys, either Labour's good enough to stay in touch, or National's that bad that they can't shake them. You can either be a great runner coming second and just choosing to stay in touch with the person in front, or you can be someone who is leading, but you're not good enough to move away from the person behind. Both can be the reason. We don't know which it is, and we probably won't know for 12 months. So, yeah, it's interesting, though.
I'm frustrated with the farming sector. Out of every sector that we have in our economy, these guys had their asses hanging in the wind because of the climate change that's coming, because of their exposure to the fluctuations in international markets and that sort of thing. And they're just sticking to the same old views. And I don't know how that changes. Like, the Federated Farmers isn't doing them any favours. No. The party that they vote for isn't doing them any favours, because they're not having an adult conversation with them about the fact that we need to be looking at resilience. You need to realise that the hillsides that you've relied on might not be there if the climate gets hotter and wetter. You're going to be exposed to more change in the seasons, unreliable seasons and that sort of thing. Like, and I think back to how Labour dealt with the what was that disease outbreak that they had down south,
Bovine?
Bovis.
Right.
Bovis. Labour dealt with that. That could have been absolutely devastating. And I'm not going to take away from how devastating it was for the farms affected, but if that had spread further than it had, but it gets ignored. Nobody remembers that. I don't know how you get through to the farming sector.
Well, but the thing is as well, the thing that has always been very confusing, that's the farming sector. And I've showed this once before on this podcast, but I'll show it again. When Jacinda Ardern left, the agriculture sector loses a friend. Federated Farmers President Andrew Hoggard believes the agriculture sector is losing a friend with the shock resignation of Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. He told Rural News that Ardern was one of the more supportive voices that farmers had among cabinet ministers. Many people may think that I've had too much to drink during my holidays, but within the cabinet, she supported the ag sector more than anybody else. you know, it just seems a bit strange that on one hand, all the farmers think a certain way. On the other hand, people that actually dealt with the politicians was like, yeah, she was pretty good for the ag sector.
And I think politicians that try and to split off the rural sector and the urban sector and that sort of thing and just go, oh, you know, fucking townies don't understand what you guys go through. That's like, those guys should see that for what it is, which is just insane pandering. There's an enormous pushback on the rest of the country when we say, hey, look, we make all of this food, but we pay this money. Like, and it's the supermarkets, and you know, why are we paying export prices for butter? Why is it cheaper to get New Zealand lamb in Australia or the UK than it is here? It doesn't make any sense, because it doesn't. Why can't I swim in the river anymore? Why is the water table around Ashburton just full of nitrates? We want you guys to do better. And then the conversation becomes, see, these townies don't understand. No farmers, no food. Drive your tractor up the main street. It's, I mean, there's I know there's good farmers out there. I know that there are guys that are replanting wetlands that had been drained by previous generations and that sort of thing. But that's not the conversations that we're having. It's incredibly frustrating.